Blade the Vampire Hunter was turned to the dark side and betrayed the entire Marvel Universe. Now he's seeking to corrupt Miles Morales. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Miles Morales Spider-Man issue number 21 and find out what happens next together, shall we? So then, this issue is a direct tie-in to the events of Blood Hunt, and we know this because we pick on up with Miles, Dracula, and Briella, Blade's own daughter, not long after she ran off on the Avengers. In the last part of that series, Briella is obviously all sorts of messed up right now because she didn't know her father was actually the evil mastermind behind this brand new vampire takeover of Earth. She also doesn't like to think that Dracula, one of her father's worst enemies now turned tenuous ally, thinks that she might only be able to stop all of this if she's willing to kill her dad. By far though, the worst part for her is that Miles, her friend, who was himself turned into a vampire sleeper agent by Blade only to be saved by Doctor Strange, is just kinda rocking with Dracula. And I mean, in Miles's defense, if they're going to defeat this vampire plague, they're going to need all hands on deck. Dracula has seemed to be calling it down the middle so far, and I mean, it's not like Miles hasn't redeemed the last several old-timey villains he's run into. I mean, talk to Scorpion, talk to Rhino. This debate really ends up not having a winner, and Dracula and Bloodline eventually just kind of run off to their own tie-in series with very little actual resolution here. In fact, Miles just basically kind of throws up his hands and decides to go back to business as usual, trying to help as many people he can back in Brooklyn. Of course, this ends up not working out so well for him because his mask gets torn during a fight, and his new vampiric visage ends up absolutely scaring the crap out of Joe and Jane Citizen. Oh sure, he could try and explain to them that yes, he's a vampire, but Doctor Strange took away his bloodlust, but let's face it, nobody got time for that, especially not when the Marvel world is ending once again. It only seems to happen in the summer months, right? Miles falls back and tries to collect himself. He's been through a lot in a very short amount of time, and it seems that it's actively starting to wear on him now as he starts passing out and dangerously falling to the street down below. But before he hits, though, we're actually treated to a little flashback to how exactly it was Miles was bitten by Blade. In fact, this whole little exchange here is a direct continuation of a scene we had already seen back in Blood Hunt issue number 1, so yay for connective tissue. Blade, using the same element of surprise he would end up using on the Avengers, suckers Miles in by pretending to be his friend, by pretending that he has the answer to stop all of these vampires only to bite Miles. And yes, before you even have to ask, Miles' spider sense did indeed warn him about Blade's bite. Unfortunately, it didn't warn him quick enough. A bitten Miles very valiantly tries to battle Blade. Even the Daywalker himself admits that Spider-Man's sword training under Colleen Wing has gotten quite impressive in a short amount of time. However, time is exactly the thing that isn't exactly on Miles' side right now. Blade knew that if he was just able to prolong this fight long enough, eventually Miles would turn into a creature of the night and as such be under his sway. Blade, Lord of Vampires, would give Miles his mission as a sleeper agent to go and attack his daughter Bloodline, and well, we all know how that ended up now, don't we? Miles wakes up after having not hit the ground thanks to the intervention of Hightail, yet another one of the villains from the Cape Killers that Miles was actively trying to redeem in his role as Spider-Man. Hightail, you remember, was actually turned into a vampire by Ramir, the ancient all-powerful immortal energy vampire that Miles and Blade had originally teamed up to fight. Hightail still has something of a connection to Ramir, and now that the sky has gone dark and vampires from all over the world are getting more and more antsy and brazen, Hightail has good reason to believe that Ramir's followers are probably going to try and resurrect him, and well, this looks like a job for Spider-Man, meaning it's time for another superpowered team-up. Because really, let's face it, the last thing Blood Hunt needs right now is vampires. It's like fighting fire with fire. You can't fight vampires with more vampires. Well, you know, unless it's a controlled vampire burn to try and decrease destruction, but you know what, now I'm just mixing my metaphors. Spider-Man and Hightail manage to crash the vampiric ritual and make short work of all the grunch suckerheads. Unfortunately, though, they show up just a little too late, and the spirit of Ramir ends up jumping inside the body of his last remaining follower, being reborn once again. Meaning that as the comic comes to a close, everything has managed to go from very bad to very worse in a short amount of time. And so that was Miles Morales Spider-Man issue number 1, everybody, and honestly, I can't lie, I found this one to be a little bit underwhelming, both as a story on its own and a tie-in, which is a real shame because Cody Ziegler has proved time and time again to really make lemonade out of lemons when it comes to tie-ins. A shame too because the end of that last Blood Hunt issue really teed up this story only for Miles to kind of throw up his hands and go off and have a completely different different vampire adventure with a completely different vampire villain. Also, while it was certainly cool to see Miles's fight with Blade on the page, we don't exactly learn anything from it that we didn't already know. Future solicitations do seek to imply that Miles will actually be staying a vampire for the next little bit, even after the end of Blood Hunt. So I guess there's nothing stopping them from circling back to Blade later. There's also a germ of an interesting idea in here too, that even Miles is aware of his amazing ability to turn former bad guys good. And Hightail herself seems to be the newest contestant on that particular game show. Beyond that, there's not really much to talk about. There was very little meat on this bone. The blood in this Blood Hunt tie-in was thin. Hopefully the next issue has more going on for it. Hopefully they can save this arc. I certainly have faith in Ziegler to do that, but I guess we'll just wait and see. Overall, though, I would give this one a 6 out of 10. It's not exactly bad, but it's a low point in this series, which is a shame.
Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.